Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Today's project's going to be something that I've been putting off for, well, ever since I started woodworking pretty much. One of the first things of wood I bought was a cutting board kit from eBay that had maple, walnut, and cherry in it. And I guess I did kind of cheap because I bought the kit, but that's because I didn't have a joiner and a planer. And I still don't have a joiner and a planer, but I really want to make the cutting board, which people usually make pretty early on in their woodworking career, but I'm a late bloomer. Anyways, let me know what you think in the comments. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already and you want to. If you don't want to, I understand completely. And stay safe wherever you are. Thank you for watching. Here we go. As you can see, the particular kit I bought came packaged nicely, with 5 each of cherry, walnut, and maple. I'd mention who I purchased it from, but I'm not sponsored, and since it's been a year since I bought this, I'm not sure if it is even still offered anyways. But if they do see this and want to, I'll put a link in the description. And then, as you could imagine, I spent some time trying to figure out the exact layout that I wanted. I wanted it to be a bit smaller, so I wasn't using all of the pieces, so this is why it isn't just alternating colors. I also wanted to make sure I used the straightest and best looking pieces of wood, since this was my first attempt, especially at the glue up part of it. The glue up part is the part that I was most looking forward to and that I knew I had the most to learn about. I made a few mistakes, which are probably evident to experienced people right now, but it will show up later after drying. Overall, for my first attempt, I do not think it went that bad. And I do have to say that it was quite enjoyable, but I imagine if you were making hundreds of the same ones over and over day after day, it could get a bit tedious. Now is the time that my biggest problem, or mistake, or happy accident, or whatever you want to call it, starts to become quite noticeable. I did halfway attempt at scraping my glue, but I only did it on one side, which I could have really did a better job of, but it wasn't too big of a problem, and it didn't cause me too much of a headache down the road, but I probably would do it a little bit different next time. After letting the glue cure overnight, I popped it out of the clamps and flipped it over to scrape the glue on the bottom. As I am doing this, I realized that I should probably invest in some more clamps. Either a decent set of parallel clamps or bar clamps, I guess, because I had uneven pressure on the top and bottom of my boards. They had small cracks on the bottom. Thankfully, it did not go too deep, so I was lucky and we get to see what it was going to be like trying to fix it. Before tackling that problem, I needed to flatten the cutting board. I've never really hand planed before, and it took me a bit to get the hang of it. And I still need to get my plane dialed in a little better, and the blades sharpened a lot better. But in the end, it actually worked and made my cutting board pretty flat. I have to say I do envy the nice DeWalt or even Hercules planers, but there is something that is somewhat satisfying and rewarding about using hand planes and hand tools. Next, it was time to cut off the ends, making it the length that I was hoping for, as well as relieving just how deep the cracks went into the board. I am also quite aware that I don't have my riving knife on my table saw. I keep meaning to put it back on, and hopefully I'll get to it tomorrow. Okay, here we go. Since the cracks were not that deep, I figured I would try the popular YouTube trick of wood glue and sawdust to fill them in. I know some experienced woodworkers such as Eric Curtis frown on this technique, and I kind of learned why later. This was my first time trying this trick, and since this is going to be the bottom of the cutting board, I felt it was worth a try just for the experience, since no one but me would ever really see it and know what was done. Let me know what you think about this technique and if there is a better solution other than just gluing it up properly in the beginning. It was about this time while sanding that it became apparent to me that I was not going to be a big fan of this technique, at least not for this application. I'm not sure if I did not let the glue set up enough, or this is how it always is, but it started smearing everywhere and made quite a mess that would have to be sanded out later. Now it is time for sanding and cleaning up the mess and of course more sanding. I will speed this up a good bit and cut a lot of the footage of me sanding because I feel it is kind of even worse to watch than my other content. But if you enjoy watching me sand, just let me know because I can provide you with hours of riveting footage of it. Oh, and of course I water popped and then let it dry and the wood fibers raise, and then of course I sanded some more and sanded some more. I first did a few practice cuts to decide on the right size chamfer for the bottom of the board. I wanted to put a chamfer because I like the way it looks and I think it makes it a bit easier to pick up. But I guess this is mostly a matter of personal preference, whether to use a chamfer or round over or a straight edge or even bottom finger grips for your boards. For the top edge of the board, I went with a round over. This was to provide a little contrast from the bottom, and again, I just like the way it looks. I did not add a juice screw for several reasons. First, I'm not a big fan of how they look. They make the board a little harder to clean, and they are kind of irritating when you're trying to slide vegetables off the board. Also, I cut meat on a different silicone board, so they are kind of useless to me. Now for a little bit more sanding for your viewing pleasure before we drill our pilot holes and add the little rubber feet. And I would suggest for anybody, especially new woodworkers, to pick up a pack of these feet. They come in various sizes in a little kit from Amazon, and I'm sure pretty much anywhere else that sells little rubber feet. And they have a ton of uses. Now it's time for some more sanding as we get ready for our final finishing. I think I went all the way up to 240 here. Please let me know in the comments what grit you like to sand to on cutting boards. Because me, it seems like, in the beginning it's always nicer the smoother it is. But then, is it really necessary in the long run? For the finishing, I first just gave them a real good coat of mineral oil, or as you can see, unscented pure mineral baby oil. I know some people like to soak them overnight in it, and I don't have that much mineral oil and I don't have a tub tube, so I just put a real good coat on it and let it sit for a few hours. And then I came back after a few hours and wiped off the excess. Once that was complete, I wiped it with a real good layer of my own personal board butter that I made. And of course, the board butter is just a mixture of mineral oil and beeswax. It's my simple mixture. I made it myself, and it works quite well. I rubbed this in pretty good, and I put about 2 coats on, let it sit, and then I let it sit overnight and came back the next morning and wiped off any excess. And here we are, my first attempt at making a cutting board in all of its glory. I think it turned out pretty well. Let me know what you think in the comments. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already and you want to. If you don't want to, I completely understand. Thank you for watching it this far. Stay safe and don't forget to smile.